What is the spiritual significance of money, and what are we supposed to learn from money energy?
It's so interesting to us to see how humans put so much energy into generating currency that will give you permission to create the things that you want to create, rather than just creating the things that you want to create. It's very interesting to us. And it's an example of how much humans have outsourced their creative capacity. If I have this, then I can do that. And yet all the while, how many humans have you witnessed and experienced in your reality that become so focused on gaining the permission to create that they actually forget to create and forget that they wanted to create?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Celeste Ball podcast. Today I am incredibly honored to have this respected channeler with us. She is highly respected in the industry. She's known as the teacher of teachers because she assists people in the new earth energy who are already working in that field to amplify their message. She has also been collaborating with people from various different fields in natural medicine, business, education, and new technologies. She channels the masters, which includes Saint Germain, Serapis Bay, Kutumi. I'm super excited. Rebecca Dawson, welcome to the Celeste Ball podcast.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm really delighted to be able to create an interesting conversation today. Thank you, Tanya.
Rebecca, tell us, how did you even enter this field of channeling and the metaphysical, magical world? How did this begin?
Well, it really, I think for me, my senses were always still switched on and fully intact when I was a child. So it was really an adventure in how to understand what it was that I could sense and feel and hear. And that moved with me through my childhood and into my teens. I don't think anyone really ever intends to be a channeler. It's not something we're taught to aspire to when we're at school and in the education system. So for me, it wasn't something that I planned upon. It happened as a spontaneous event when I was studying at university. And the challenge after that was, now, what does that mean for my life? So it was an interesting journey into, is this something that's just of interest or a hobby? Or is it something that really is meant to be my life? So it took me some time to work that out.
When I watched all of your videos, even while watching it, I could feel this calm vibe coming through when I'm trying to do some research. It's like I can't even make the difference between when is it Rebecca talking or when is it the channeler, right? When it is the masters. Were you always like this? And when did you achieve this sort of, like, now you seem it's perfectly balanced, and how did you achieve this?
That's such a great question. Thank you for asking that. Actually, not many people would think to ask that. But in the beginning, actually, it was quite cumbersome. It was awkward. And the first few times it happened, the masters just came through me. The first one that came through me actually was Serapis Bay, and that was the very first time I channeled. And it felt like I was really having to manage the energy. So there was a certain degree of letting go, but there's also then a certain degree of how do you actually accommodate this energy as well. And I guess probably not the right word to use, but it's a little bit how do you learn to control it? So in the beginning, I think my body language was quite awkward and the voice was very different. And it felt like a big difference between my own personal energy as a young woman and the energy of the masters coming through. And I feel that after so many years, because it's been 30 years now that we've been doing this, my vibration, I feel, has shifted and changed to become more of a match. So it's quite seamless now. I can just move in and out. And it can be difficult to tell the difference sometimes, even with conversations with family and friends, to just bring in a little bit of wisdom or guidance sometimes they don't expect. But yeah, it's difficult to tell the difference sometimes.
I noticed that even when you're talking, when you're not channeling, you would say we.
Oh, yes.
Have you noticed that? You say we and you talk. So it's, yeah, how does that work? So you can feel their presence all the time, or?
Always. Yes, I actually don't realize I'm doing that. People have pointed it out to me. I feel it with me all the time. And in my, I guess, my own expanding awareness over the years, I now have a different view of what channeling is. I don't see it anymore as something outside of me coming in. It's now more something deeper within me coming out. And so in that regard, it is a we, because I am representing other streams of consciousness. And I liken it to be branches on a tree, and the deeper you go into your own awareness, and the more you sit in meditation, and the more you move into the oneness, you can access any branch on that tree. It doesn't feel like it's anything really separate to you.
That seems like the ideal endpoint for everybody, right, on the planet, where
Well,
we feel like.
Yeah, I feel it's our natural state. It's just we might not have an awareness of it because we're always in a pursuit of our individual journeys or our individual dreams or our individual creations, rather than relaxing back into the whole of the cosmic tree. And now, what can I access? What can I explore? Really, it's going within rather than out.
That is very tricky, because how do we even know, right? What is going within? Because I think, I stumbled upon channeling just 6 months back, and I thought channeling started 6 months back because that's the first time I came across
Oh,
Bashar's videos. And now when I'm bringing guests on the podcast, they're like, "You've been channeling for 30 years." I see videos, 15-year-old, 13-year-old videos. I'm like, what?
right.
This has been there for all these years? How come I didn't even notice? How come I didn't know this, right? Uh, it's totally new. So now for people like me, who are like so new to this, and we're like, whoa, we've stumbled upon something like so cool. We have um, this sort of I think a very naive approach where we're like, oh, even I want to channel. This sounds like so much fun. This sounds cool. I mean, if I can start channeling, then probably all of my problems will just get resolved or something. Is this even true? What are some of the cons of pursuing channeling?
Whoa, goodness. Okay, so let's unpack some of those questions there. All fantastic questions. Thank you. So really, I mean, first of all, channeling is something that everyone can do. The way that we see channeling is the key to really discovering the innate capacity that we have as humans for wisdom. We are all connected. And we are all connected to one source intelligence. And just like we connect through the internet, which I see as an external demonstration of our true nature, instead of it connecting out there, we connect into the internal system. And that internal system means that the more that you move away from your own individual sense of self and you relax back into source consciousness, suddenly you have what we might call enhanced intuition, or you have an awareness about things, or you begin to become very in tune with nature and other people. Your senses become more heightened. And so you access more of that capacity the more you go within. And sometimes that can mean really just being with your body. Sometimes it can be meditation. Sometimes it can be prayer for people. And that capacity is something that we all have. The question is, are we focusing on it, and are we placing our attention there instead of externalized sources of information? So in the beginning, of course, when I started moving into channeling, I had an understanding, because that's all that I had access to. Who are other mediums in the world and what are they doing? And all the information that I had was that this is something outside of yourself that comes in. And
Yeah,
it's through my,
that's what
yes.
I that's what we think too, right? Okay.
Right. And so over the years, my personal experience was actually this is something within us that comes out. So we are like, as humans, we're an interface or a portal or a doorway between the greatness of the universe and this third dimensional material world that we sit in. And if we start to realize that we're not the door, but we're actually the doorway, so much more can begin to emerge in us. But yes, I am absolutely of the belief and notion that we all have this capacity. And not only do we all have the capacity to access wisdom and information and insights and greater views, but it's actually our right to. And I think that's an important point, because channeling isn't really something, I wouldn't even say it's metaphysical. Some people would say it's mystical, but is it really just our natural state of awareness? Probably.
That makes sense. That makes sense because when I try to pursue it outside, it's like I can't stop. Right? It's never ending. I buy that
Right.
course. I pay for that activation, this activation, past life. I mean, I've had so many past lives. When will this end? Past life regressions, future self. Then I can travel into the future and look into it. So it's, and then when I come across something like this, like an ad or something in front of me that pops up, I think that, oh, I need to pay for it because this is probably divine intervention, and if I don't pay for it, I'm probably doing something wrong. So it's like it's never ending. And then you spoke about how for you, on your case, you tried to search for spiritual masters and teachers, but you got kicked out of everywhere, so you were able to
This is
easily
true.
dive in. So how is it for you, when, because you didn't have access to any of this information, right? So is it possible for us to actually do it ourselves without having a teacher? And if so, what were those practices, and what was it like that first time when everything opened up for you, that moment?
So I'll start with the first question in there, which was, how do you go into that if there's no external information? Well, for me, that was actually, I mean, I was aware of other channelers because I had some exposure to that when I was younger. Because I had a lot of capacities, my parents made sure that I could access different metaphysical things. So I did some classes when I was younger and learnt different things. And I was aware of channeling. There was another channeler that lived in our city that I would go and see. But when it came to myself moving into a channeling state, the general consensus was, you're too young, you're too inexperienced, you don't know what you're doing, it could be dangerous. You really shouldn't be doing that. And I can see in hindsight, even though I found it very difficult at that time, I'd been through an education system that 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 wired me or conditioned me to believe that actually you need to find somebody that's experienced in this to teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
And of course, that just wasn't available for me. And everywhere that I went to get assistance, the doors weren't opening. It was closing to me. And I can see in hindsight how that was absolutely perfect, because even though it was difficult at the time, what it taught me was to absolutely listen to what's happening in here and don't listen so much to what's happening out there. And it's been very valuable for me, particularly because we started bringing through newer information around sciences and what's happening with dimensional shifts, and even talking about 5D reality years and years ago before anyone was talking about it. And it was a continual leap of faith for me to okay, well, this is the wisdom that's coming. I don't know anything about it. So I just have to trust it. So I feel that if I'd had a teacher, I would have had a set of beliefs
Yeah.
that would have made it difficult for me to bring through anything else that went outside of the containment of those beliefs. Yes. So in the beginning, when the experience first happened, because that was the other question that was in there, it wasn't a frightening experience, but it was a surprising experience. And the difficulty was, after that, what do I now do with, what does this mean? What do I do with this? And because physically it was quite a different energy, I would get headaches and need to sleep a lot. And it was an interesting time.
Oh, you used to get a, so the first time you heard the voice, was it the voice that you heard the first time, or you got a vision?
No,
Did you pursue it?
I didn't really hear anything. It was more, my voice spontaneously changed, my energy changed. I felt as if there was something inside me trying to come out. It was a very expanded energy. My body had to adjust to it. So I don't actually hear sound like people might say, well, I hear a voice and then I repeat it. It actually just, it's like an energy that comes up and comes out as speech. So I don't hear it before it's spoken. I do get visuals.
Oh, you do get visuals.
Yes.
That's interesting. So before you started channeling the masters, did you know who the masters were?
I had an understanding that there was this idea around ascended masters because I had done a lot of research into different spiritual philosophies. I didn't know too much about it. And even when they first came through, I didn't realize that they were who they are because they presented themselves in such a way that they didn't really want to be named in the beginning. And it wasn't until I got very confident with the energy that they started to come through and say, okay, well, this is how you can identify what this energy is that's coming through you. But it didn't begin that way.
It would just, I mean, it makes sense because if they said in the beginning that we are the masters, then you were like, what?
Right. I wouldn't have believed myself.
I'm like, shut up.
So they're pretty clever, actually. It was quite clever the way it was all done because it was all very incognito in the beginning until I became more confident with it and began to trust what was happening.
That makes sense. What do you think? You channel the masters, someone else channels the Arcturians, for example. How is it that, like, what connects the human to who they channel? Is it because they have had any past lives with them, or they've done so much work, or they're of a higher vibration? What is the connecting point?
What a great question. Thank you. Well, the way that I would explain this, that my current understanding of it, because my understanding is always changing as things deepen, is that we're all part of one, I like to call it the cosmic tree. It even looks like the shape of the universe. And we as individuals are particular filaments coming off one branch of that tree. And so depending on where you are on that cosmic tree or your current version of life, which is this right now, this entity known as Rebecca sits there. In the beginning, when you first start to channel, you can access what's closest to you on those branches of tree, on that branch of tree. So there'll be other streams of consciousness that are very similar to where you are. And the deeper you go, you can really begin to access anything. And that includes yourself in other times or other lifetimes. It could be other galactic groups. And actually, when I first started channeling, I did have a lot of that going on in there as well. I don't do much of that anymore. Occasionally we'll get guest energies that come in if there's a particular topic, and they can deal with that better than the masters can in that context. But that's how I would answer that. It depends on what's closest to you in your branch of the cosmic tree. And some people might describe that as your soul group. They might describe that as something that's more similar to your vibration. So for me, when I was a child, I had a lot of memory of other lives. I never really lost that. And what's really interesting about that is that as I got older and people were hearing about who I was channeling, people would send me, oh, this is the history of this master. And what I discovered was that my past life memories were the same as what these stories were. So that was interesting.
That is really interesting. Can you dive deeper into that? You had your past lives that sounded like the masters?
Yes. And so let's just say I have an awareness that I have shared memories. And I'm not sure if that's because I'm so close on the branch of the tree or because I'm an aspect of that consciousness in this life, but there's a lot of shared experience and memory there. Yes.
Can you talk about one shared experience that you remember?
Yes. So I have memory of designing the Temple of Luxor in Egypt. And I always
Wow.
wanted to go to Egypt. And I never had a chance to go there actually till I think it's about 6 years ago. I took a big group of people there for a channeling tour, and I'd never been. And I just always had this awareness that, I actually designed this whole temple. I have a memory of doing that as an architect at that time. And when we went there, we had a guide that took us there. And first thing I did when I walked up the front, I felt this energy come in, and that was the energy of Serapis Bey, Master Serapis Bey, who I believe was in a life experience then that designed that temple. And we went to the front, and there were these big, like, statues of, I think they were lions or sphinxes out the front.
Mm-hmm.
And this energy came through, and I turned around to the guide, and it wasn't my voice. I said, these don't belong here. We didn't design this. And the guide said, actually, you're right. Ramses II added these to the building. And then as we went through, I said, well, where's the room that has this sitting in it? And where is this? And they said, all that's off limits. And they took us there, and there they were, exactly where I said they were going to be, with all of the details. And it was
Wow.
it was an interesting experience for me. Yeah.
It seems like a lot of people are going to Egypt these days, and I think that the tour guides would be like, "Oh my gosh, should I be the tour guide? Why don't you
Yeah.
take over?"
Well, I was as surprised as the tour guide was, because I didn't know that those rooms actually existed. So there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is a very interesting memory. When you talk about ascended masters, right? I don't understand what ascended masters mean. Does it mean, if you were to speak in terms of frequency, I mean, is it like ascended master, angels, and then God, or what is it?
Oh, I love these questions today. They're amazing. Thank you. I actually don't like the term ascended master. I don't really use it very much. As far as I'm aware, when the masters come through, they don't like it so much either. They like to use the word descension rather than ascension, because they always say our consciousness is so great, and we're actually bringing it into this concentrated form of material life. So we're descending, we're bringing more of ourselves into this reality, which is what assists with the evolution of human consciousness. So they would laugh and call themselves descended masters. I feel that term arose because during a time earlier in, I think it was the late 1800s or early 1900s, where there was a great flooding of awareness around the masters. I think the understanding at that time was that there was hierarchy in terms of where we sit in the world and the universe, and therefore, their consciousness sits here. But we're always very clear when we speak about oneness and how we're all part of the same consciousness. So we don't really like to say that there is a hierarchy of consciousness, because it's not really where we're going as humanity.
That makes sense. I mean, when you do like a hierarchy too, it makes it a little bit more difficult for us to think we can access it,
Of
because we think that
course.
we are not worthy enough or good enough.
And, this is such a key part of the human experience, is that we have this conditioning of belief that's happened over so many thousands of years, that you have to have a right to access information, or it's a privilege to have knowledge, and you have to earn your way into awareness, when the opposite is true. It's our absolute birthright to access everything. It's so interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. So does death scare you now anymore?
No. Death is an adventure, I feel. No, not at all. I think because I'm already aware of other lives that I have, not just past lives or future lives, but simultaneous lives. Well, everything happens simultaneously. We don't actually live in a linear reality. It's just, it appears that way. So no, death doesn't worry me at all. I used to, when I was a child, I used to worry about how I was going to die, the manner in which I would die, because I found this earth reality to be very violent. But I'm not actually worried about death itself.
That's not because, in Bashar, someone was asking Bashar about death. So Bashar said, okay, let's talk about it. Do you want to die? Okay, lay down on the floor. So they were like, what? Why? And then he said, now close your eyes. And he's like, okay, fine. Are you dead? No. So it's like, then it's just as easy as that. If you wanted to die, you could just go under your favorite tree, lie down, and then
Right.
transition.
And actually, the most painful thing about death for humans is the death of identity. That's more painful than the physical death, because the death of identity is really giving up who you think you are and what you think you're here to do. And part of the evolution of human consciousness is we are going through this right now, which is why so many people are in a sense of personal crisis, and why so many people are looking to discover more about consciousness and the nature of themselves, because we are going through the death of identity. And if you look at that cosmic tree that we spoke about earlier, the depth of the identity is just moving from the tips of the tree back into the branches and the trunk. So we're losing our sense of individual ego or identity, and we're moving back into the embrace of the one. And we're doing it while we're here in human form. And that's the evolution of consciousness, how we identify.
So if you were to transition to the other side, what do you think would happen? Would you be Rebecca? Would you be the masters, the parallel lives?
I feel that at that moment of transition, I will relax back into all that I am and not just focus on this small aspect. So like many facets on a diamond, you become all of it instead of just one. Looking out one facet, one window, life looks like this. Now you see all of it. So I have glimpses of that occasionally.
Interesting. It makes sense because I heard you talking about it on the Wisdom from North podcast as well, where you say that the people who have many ego deaths, they seem to live longer. I mean, if I understand, they're like, can you explain what that means?
Yes. So what we're used to in humanity, especially because this is how our DNA has developed over hundreds of thousands of years, is that when we have a death in identity, that goes with a physical death.
When we have a death in identity, that goes with a physical death.
Yes. So if you look back in history, lifespans were a little bit shorter. And when you would be born into the village, you would work in the village, have children in the village, and die in the village. And so it was a very limited experience. And then upon physical death, your identity would also die. And as consciousness evolves, we can have several different lives within one life. Now, you can have this period of your life, this chapter where you lived in this country and did this, or had that career, and now you go and do this. And so we are getting better at having a shift in identity without having to have a physical death. And the more we are embracing that, and the more we're willing to let go of who we think we are, or what we think we're attached to that forms our identity, and there's the non-attachment, the body can continue to sustain itself without attaching to an identity. But we're conditioned to believe that if we don't have an identity, we're going to die. And this is why so many people go through an ego death, and it's terrifying for them, and they really think they're going to die. Anyone I feel who's in, psychology or psychotherapy or spiritual counseling would have had a huge wave of people coming to me in the past 5 years who's saying, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know why I'm here anymore. I don't have a sense of purpose anymore. I think I'm going to die.
Absolutely.
It's amazing,
100%.
isn't it?
I don't even know if I like what I created so far.
Right. Is it time to go?
Yeah.
But we carry on, we move on. It's just the death of the identity, and then we become even more conscious and we can do more.
It makes sense because right now, if you think about it, yeah, sure. Maybe like we, like you said, we can move from this country to the other country, and so we are having many ego deaths. Now it's from all of these, from our experience on planet Earth. Now our consciousness is expanding to like a galactic thing where we are expanding more out into the other planets and the other dimensions and all that. And again, it's um, which would probably lead to an even more longer lives, probably. Do you think our lifespan is also going to increase in the future?
For
Like maybe in
sure.
the next, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, because the
And
original blueprint for humanity, we're not designed to have short lifespans.
in the Bible, it does say, right? They brought it down to 120 years. They said that God punished people because they went and I don't know the Bible so much, but they went and ate the apple. So now it's 120 years. What are your thoughts on that? What is that about?
Well, when you forget your own connection to the tree, the cosmic tree of life, and you just see yourself as separate, cast out, I'm an individual out here trying to survive. You're so invested in your personality or your persona or your own individual journey in order to survive, that when that dies, you die as well. So the more you are with the consciousness of the one, that's where your immortality is. Your immortality is not with the identity. Your identity will not last, but your body can. But as humanity has forgotten how to do that. And if you look at some of the wisest sages or teachers that this world has known, many of them have been living far beyond what we would call typical life expectancy.
Saint Germain, when I looked up Saint Germain online, I read that his death is, and like it's people don't know about much about his death because he seemed to appear over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it comes to Jesus Christ, also, Yeshua also died, and then they said that he woke up and he was roaming the earth for 40 days. What does that mean? Does it mean that their physical body disintegrated into like thin air and then their light bodies were seen around? What do you know what it means?
Well, I mean, I don't personally know, but I could suggest that they were so at one with source consciousness that they were able to move in and out of this physical reality without requiring an identity to anchor them to a particular form.
Okay.
Because Saint Germain will often talk about that and what time travel is and what immortality is. And probably the way I've heard him describe it best is that the more aware you become, you have the choice to sit on the side of the river and jump in when you want to into the stream of life. You can pop out and you can jump in and you can come out and you can jump in because you're not bound to identity. And so he has often described that that's what he does, and that's his sense of immortality, is being able to embody at any time to engage.
Well, this is obviously a little bit difficult for my human brain to understand.
And mine
But
sometimes too.
that is good to know. I don't feel so stupid anymore. You said that you could get visions, right? So when you are, let's say, channeling Saint Germain or the masters, can you see what they see? Like, for example, can you feel what it is like for Saint Germain in that dimension and what he sees? Is that what you
Yes,
see? Oh, you
yes,
do?
yes. And I
Interesting.
wish I was an animator or a graphic designer, because I
Oh,
would love to be able to share that. So when I'm in channel, whether it's for a personal session or doing a seminar, I have the view that they have, and then
wow.
they will sometimes I marvel at how a multidimensional complex view I say complex. The other side of that is it's very simple. Simple complexity of life can be described and distilled down to sentences. That blows my mind. That is a skill in itself. And I don't feel that I personally have that skill as a human, but it's incredible how you can take something that's far beyond what our brains are capable of understanding and bring it into a few sentences. That is extraordinary to me. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah, sure.
So for example, if I'm doing a personal session for someone, and I've done a lot of these over the years, thousands, we'll first of all go in and we'll view that person, and everyone has a blueprint, and that blueprint is not just a map for this lifetime. It's a blueprint for potentials and possibilities. So it's not just this is what's going to happen. These are all the potentials that could happen. It's fractalized. And so what it looks like is it looks like a multi-dimensional map of spheres. And every sphere is a set of circumstances or a set of potentials. And so, and it sometimes it looks like the DNA as well. It is all mapped out.
This one.
Yes, but when the DNA is unstructured, it looks like all of these spheres.
Okay, yeah, got it.
And they might come in, and this person, for example, might be coming in because they have a child that is having difficulty at school and they want some guidance about this child. So we'll go in and we'll have a look not only at the parent but at the child, and we see all of this, what is possible for this child in this life, where they've been, where they could go. And we're looking at it, and the masters will start talking about, well, this is how this child learns, or this is their emotional experience, and therefore we suggest this. But at the same time, I'm there viewing. I'm not really part of the conversation. I'm just watching. And I can see all of this and what this child is, capable of doing in this life and what they've come here equipped with. And it's quite extraordinary. And in the beginning, I used to have a conversation with them internally and say, but we should be talking about this. This is amazing. And they'll say no, because this is what they need to know right now. They don't need to know that yet. Or it's not wise for the mother to know that right now, because it could steer things in a completely different direction. But it's fascinating, because I always see 100 times more than what is ever expressed.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard this sort of an explanation before on any podcast or any episode till now. I mean, not mine, but in general, I've not heard that. Okay. So it looks like there are some sort of looks like a computer programming, right? They're like you search for something and then you're looking for the right answers, and you know how to navigate that tool, and they probably know how to navigate the tool, so they know what information to pick up.
Well, they will do that, yes. They will go. And quite often people will come into a session or a seminar and they'll ask one question, this is what I want to know. And the masters will say, actually, this is what you want to know. And they'll go somewhere else completely, but that one stream of wisdom will answer everything else. So the question becomes irrelevant. So I always just trust it.
I think as that would be much easier, because if I were to ask questions, right? Because when I did an Akashic reading, and you don't know what to ask, right? We don't know what to ask. We would be like, okay, I would probably ask about my current problems, which is okay, maybe some finance problems, some relationship problems, but then if the masters would actually redirect us into the right path, that is so much better.
Well, that's usually what happens. And the questions end up being answered, but within a different context of understanding.
Has there been any sessions where you were mind blown with what they asked and what came through? Anything that you remember?
Most of them. And as a channeler, I feel so privileged, because I'm present to the conversations but not involved in them. And as such, I learn so much about the state of humanity, and I learn so much about my own human experience as well. Quite often, something will happen in a session and I'll come out of it and I'll think, gosh, that's really helpful for me with what's happening in my life this week as well. So, it's a marvel. I mean, when we do seminars and workshops and retreats, we're quite often exploring topics more deeply, and that really blows my mind, especially when we start thinking about concepts around time and materiality and what is reality and how do things really work. Yeah, it's amazing, and I have to say, I feel so privileged, because it's the only thing actually that I find stimulating enough. I think I would be very, very bored if I wasn't doing this.
Yeah. 100%. I can relate to that, because I get bored of everything so fast. And even when I'm exploring spirituality, I'm afraid that I might get bored of spirituality also. That's how bored I
Right,
get of things fast.
right. But that's the nature of humanity. We're curious and we're creators. And I think one of the main hindrances to our continued expansion is that people get very attached to their beliefs. So we might move into a spiritual guidance, or you find a teacher that you really like, or a philosophy that you really like, and people will stick with that, and they'll say, well, this is it for me. And because we're continually evolving, there's going to be a point where you evolve beyond that, and now you're ready for something else. And so one thing I've really learned from the masters that they said very early on was anything that is expressed and you discover, be prepared to burn it. Because if you attach to it, you won't be able to expand your awareness even further. So everything they give us is for where we are right now. And then quite often they'll say, okay, now this. Well, what about that? Oh, that was to get you to the point where you could now understand this.
I love that. I love that. I love knowing that, because a lot of the times my own beliefs, I just keep changing my word all the time too. Like anyway, in my house and my family, they anyway think I'm like a wacko, like a psycho. And then I keep changing what I say every week.
Yeah.
So
And
that's good to know.
it's the same for me, because really our human minds, we can only understand things in a certain way, and that context is going to keep shifting while our consciousness expands. So I always say, this is what my current understanding is. This is my current view, and it will change.
Disclaimer.
It will always change.
Yeah.
And it will always become more.
That makes sense. From your perspective, you've had so many people right now. People are coming to you for sessions and stuff, right? What do you think is the biggest problem a lot of the people are facing now? What are their core concerns, and what could be the solution to that?
Well, everyone has, what they believe are their problems, which is always relationships, money, children, work. But it's not actually that, because all of those things are what defines our character or our personality or our place in society. So our identity, right? So those are the markers for identity. So when people are coming to you with those sorts of things, what they're really asking is, I'm afraid that I can't maintain my identity. Or how do I get from this identity to another identity? And that's all about expansion and evolution of consciousness. So they're not actually looking to survive. They're looking to say, how can I survive without these attachments? And so, often we'll give guidance and wisdom about how they don't need to worry about those things anymore. And sometimes that will involve, well, this is what to look out for in the next few months. And other times it will be, well, actually, have you looked at this instead of that? And everything just shifts.
Now that you're channeling and you're doing all of these works, which is so different from the normal work that people do, how has your relationships evolved? How is your relationship with money evolved? How is it now for you?
That's a really great question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I don't think being a channeler is the easiest choice when it comes to career, and particularly when you've got children and you have to pay for things, and it's interesting. So it has been something in the past that I have found challenging. The big turning point for me was probably about 10 years ago, and I was doing a seminar on money, and the way the masters explained it was that you don't really need money to be able to create. And I really got it. And I really got it. And really, in the last 10 years, I've been able to do quite extraordinary things without needing any money at all. And so
Can
once
you
I
give an
went through
example?
trips that I've been on, things that just seem to get paid for, car broke down, I needed a new car. Suddenly someone had a spare car.
Wow,
Things like
that's a big.
that. Yeah. And it's come to the point now where I'm just completely focused on creating, that I will only do things that I'm interested in creating. So even like, setting yourself up as a business, so to speak, you should have, you're supposed to have a plan and how much money is supposed to come in. I don't do any of that. I completely outsource to someone else. So I have no idea what's coming in. I have no idea what's going out. All I focus on is where is the energy? Where do we need to be? What do we need to talk about? And everything else just somehow gets taken care of. And when I first started doing that, my bookkeeper rang me and she said, I don't know what's happening here. She said, because I can't figure out how everything has balanced, because
There's
it doesn't
income.
really make any sense. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Don't ask me. So it's an interesting one. But the key for me is, if you're doing something that you're truly interested in and it's stimulating to you, it's going to generate energy. So I decided I didn't want to work anymore. I'm just going to do the things I'm interested in, and somebody else can deal with numbers. And that's what I do now.
So when you, let's say you have to do a session or you have these memberships, is it all right to, like, what do you think about, because there are people who put a donation, they don't put a fixed price. They say pay what you want. And then there are people who say that asking people for donations, I'm talking about all the channelers itself, right? That then there are channelers that say that asking for donations is a low vibration something where you're saying that you're not worthy of asking for money. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel that everyone has a different approach to that depending on where they are. That's not something I've ever done. I have to say that when I first started channeling, I found it very difficult for us to ask for money for it. And for many years, at least 10 years, I didn't. No money was involved in that. And that's because I had some really strong beliefs from my own religious upbringing that if you have a gift, you're not meant to make money out of it, or not something that's considered to be spiritual. So that was something I needed to overcome. And it was actually my family and financial circumstances that kind of forced me to overcome that belief. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't feel that anything's lower vibration than anything else. I think it's what's in alignment with you, what's resonant for you.
I had heard the same thing about what you said, your relationship with money as well, when I was speaking, no, when I was listening to Bashar. And he said that, abundance can be in the form of opportunities, synchronicities, and resources.
Exactly.
And that was amazing because I was doing lifestyle Instagram blogging thing. And I realized that, that's true. If I wanted to go to that expensive restaurant, I don't exactly have to go pay for it. And I didn't even have to contact people, right? I had a certain number of followers on Instagram. And I just had this, I would just say, I want to go and explore some restaurants. And then I would have these DMs. It was magical because I've never had such DMs before in the last 4 years I was doing content. I would get DMs in the hidden folder saying that, please, can you come to a restaurant in exchange for a reel that you make or in exchange for stories that you make? And that's when I realized that it's true. We don't exactly need money to do things.
Right.
You could be offering something else in return for it. So it totally makes sense when you say that. When you say you're channeling Serapis Bay, right? I'm sorry, but I do not know who that is. Can you tell us who that is?
Oh, I didn't know either.
Oh, that's amazing.
But just
I don't
before
feel
we
so
go
stupid
there,
anymore.
sorry, just before
Yeah,
we go there, I just wanted to say one more
tell
thing
me.
about the money, because I think this is really important.
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
and I
It
would
is.
like to offer
Go ahead.
this to the audience. When you stop making, this is going to be somewhat contentious, when you stop making financial decisions, but you start making decisions based on resonance, everything starts to flow. So like going to the restaurant, is this a financial decision, or is this does my consciousness want to have an experience with this? Because if you are always asking, does my consciousness want to have an experience with this, everything's lining up for that to happen. And there have been many times in my life where I have not had the money to do something, but my consciousness says yes to it. We want to have this experience, and I will just do it. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. And it always comes. It has never not been okay.
Thank you so much for
So
talking
sorry.
about it, because
Yeah.
no, that is amazing, because I have personal experiences where I have made a decision based on finances. For example, should I take this job? Okay, this one pays better. I'm going to take it. And then I get really, screwed really well for taking up that job because I made the decision based on finances. Then in Indian community, we pick based on matrimonial websites, right? You go to the website and then you pick, it's arranged marriage. So there, the ones who have picked their partners based on how much money that they make, or the ones who pick partners based on how much wealth their parents have also gotten screwed royally for the decisions that they make based on finances. Relocation based on finances. I'm going to go to this country because this country seems to be offering a better pay. But when they go there, the same struggles that they've been facing here just happens in the new country that they move to because they've not dealt with it.
Right. It's so interesting because we're not taught as children, we're not taught in our education systems how to actually make decisions. And the most effective way to make a decision is to choose something that is in resonance with your consciousness, that's going to assist you to evolve and expand. And those feelings in our body are always, this feels good, this feels expansive. I don't know what it's going to be, but it feels like it's going to be okay, or it feels exciting. And so that's not really being reckless, that's actually living well instead of just making choices to survive.
So if I ask you, let's say I'm someone I'm in a really bad financial situation. Yeah. I'm stuck in legal problems. I don't have enough money to deal with things as well. For someone who is feeling so heartbroken or so stressed out because of finances and the legal issues, they're not able to move, they're not able to do things. If you tell them to focus on what makes you happy or on whatever the resonance and energies and stuff, they probably might not be able to understand that.
Of course, especially when you're in
So,
that kind of fear. Yeah, and I've been there too. I've been in those situations as well. And so what we would say is, if you can't find the expansion point in there because you're feeling so constricted, that's when you turn it into curiosity. Because especially if you're in situations where you feel like, I can't do anything, I'm at the mercy of the legal system, I'm at the mercy of whether or not I get paid or this check comes in. And in those moments, it's a challenge, but to be able to turn it into curiosity and turn it into a question. Because when you turn something that's factual in reality, this is how it is, into a question, vibrationally, it starts to open up the new pathways of possibilities. So it starts to activate the different permutations that are sitting in that experience that you can't access because you're in fear or limitation. So as soon as you turn it into a question, you say, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what's going to happen that I can't see yet. Because we believe we're in a duality experience. That's interesting. Look at the wall behind me. Duality. I just noticed that then. Whereas we believe, say you're in a legal situation, it can go for me or it can go against me. And there's only two options. That's duality. But in actuality, we live in a very vibrant, multidimensional experience. So you always ask, I wonder what the third thing is. What's the third option? What's the third option? What can't I see yet? I wonder what's going to happen. And vibrationally, that sets in motion different possibilities other than the ones that you're presented with. And you can do that. I mean, we're not really limited to choose from two things. Life isn't that way. Life's meant to be a buffet of experience, not do you want this or this? Because if you choose one thing or the other, there's always a sacrifice. Instead of, I wonder what else is on offer that I can't see yet. And that's when the magic really begins to happen. So if you're stuck, turn it into a question.
I love that so much. I think this is gold for the audience. I love that. I remember now, I don't remember who was talking about it, but she said that before, whenever stuck in a situation, I would say, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I'll probably get fired. That's how I used to ask myself. Then she said that someone else, not a channeler or anything, she I forgot her name, but she said, change the question and ask, how good could this get? How amazing could this get? And that was amazing because I mean, there was a situation where, like things are like difficult at, let's say, like a project or something. And I was like, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I would probably get fired. I shifted it and I said, I mean, how good could this get? And then the possibilities, like you said, opened up. I mean, this could just dissolve. Maybe they would appreciate, send music. Like it's like so many different options opened up. That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. The power of the
How do you
question. It opens
the
reality
power
up instead of a statement which kind of closes the reality. That's it. That's what
that
you
is
get.
that yeah. Yeah. When we talk about relationships in New Earth, right? How do you think the relationships are evolving?
Oh, gosh. That goes hand in hand with identity, right? Because while everyone's identities are shifting, they're wondering how they can stay in the same relationships. The relationships have to evolve as well. So again, it's not so different to the conversation around money. Does this feel resonant to me or not? And how we choose what we're doing with relationships. The other thing interesting about relationships too is we tend to see relationships as transactional, and I know this is a very popular viewpoint, that it's
Who splits the bill?
exchange and give and take. But exchange and give and take is not, it's not about resonance. It's about a system of sacrifice again. So once we
Yeah.
move in more into fifth dimensional experience, it's now about resonance. And with resonance, you can be with your partner without really having to sacrifice anything, because you're allowed to completely be yourself. And in that, you enhance each other's, you accelerate each other's capacities and ability to experience new things. So if we looked at that like two candles, how we're used to seeing it is that, you lean in towards each other and you share that flame. But if you do that, your wax is going to melt far more quickly. Or one person's going to have more light and the other one's really going to burn more quickly. And we often see that in typical marriages. We see it a lot with people that come to us. One supports the other a little bit more. But when you move into a resonant experience, this is like having two candles in the same room. Now there's just a lot more light. You don't have to share the flame. You can now just coexist. And now, because there's so much more light in the room from two flames, you can see so much more that's available to you. So this is where you become very abundant and creative in your experiences, because if you're with someone you're truly resonant with, that you can create with, it's because you're not really in that transactional experience.
So if two people, because someone who's pursuing spirituality or these, the self growth track, their personality changes every time, and you can't exactly change your partners every time. What does
No.
that mean to? Yeah, what does that mean to? What does it mean about marriage? Should there even be marriages or these sort of contracts? Is that part of the old paradigm?
I feel that it will become part of an older paradigm. It doesn't mean to say that you don't have lifelong partners, or you don't have partners that you can be with in a committed experience. It just means that the reason that you come together is to the focus is on the evolution of your own consciousness. And while I'm with this person, I feel as if I'm becoming more evolved. I feel as if I have the space to be able to become more of myself. So that's the first thing is I feel is foundational is, are we both here for the evolution of our own consciousness and to be with each other and understand when that's shifting and changing, because you might not evolve at the same rates. You might not expand at the same rates. But if that's your focus, then that's the arrangement. We're going to be with each other and recognize that that's what's happening if there's any sense of dissonance that happens. So the other thing is, of course, when you move into an awareness of quantum sciences and how energy in our reality works, the rule of thumb is that anyone who say you've got two people and one evolves a little bit more quickly than the other, if you're clear and authentic in what's happening and the other person is in your space, they're very likely to shift into that energy with you if you are sitting in that and maintaining it and honoring it. They'll shift into that with you. What does that mean? It means that you will also get very likely an upgraded experience of your partner as well. But what happens is that people will shift. They'll see that their partner hasn't shifted, and then they'll say, this is no longer for me because the transactional experience doesn't work. They can't give me what I need anymore. I can't give them what they need anymore. But the opportunity is there to say, well, if I see that this is really about the evolution of our consciousness, then if it still feels within me to be in this space with this person, I'm going to be patient and we're going to see them shift as well. Or the partner may choose to leave if it's really not for their consciousness.
That is actually really beautiful.
But you can't shift another person's consciousness. And that's difficult for people to realize. You can't do it. And nor should you. The masters always say, mind your own reality, focus on the evolution of your own consciousness, and that is your service to others because it gives them an opportunity to shift also.
It's obviously easier said than done, because
It is.
if there is, I mean, I actually I think it's also a lesson for us as well, because let's say I now think that, oh, I'm a very high vibrational person. I'm already there's already a spirituality ego crap that's coming up there. And then when I say, oh, my family don't understand what I'm talking about, they're always watching these negative news and talking about useless things and all that. And I was at that state where I felt like I'm now better than them, and they are now very low vibrational people there. But we have to have interactions. Then, as I started evolving more and more and more, I I had this sort of a like I started to surrender. That's very, again, another word that's easier said than done. But I started to just observe it and not force it, and I realized that that is that's actually love. Um, yeah, that's next level love, when you just don't want to change people.
Yes, and that's so beautiful. I love the way you express that. Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. Because I think also the more you become comfortable with your own authenticity, the more you realize that everyone is sitting in the space that they need to be in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's the whole thing is a big lesson for me. This whole, like, me doing the podcast, and even when I'm doing the podcast, right? There too, I wanted to be like a really good podcaster. Like, I have to ask the best questions, and I want to like make it like 1 million subscribers and all of that stuff. And then it got to a point where I felt like I was just not doing a good enough work in that. Like, it's like, before I interview someone on the podcast, I want to make sure I read their books. But then it got to a point where I'm having an interview every week. I won't be able to finish reading their books, and I get overwhelmed, and I feel like I'm not doing good enough. Yesterday or today morning, I was in a meditation, and I asked Yashua. See, I don't know if I channel or etc., but I'm just saying it. Okay, so I asked Yashua, give me questions. I have 100,000 questions in my Notion that I always keep popping up, which I think is very intelligent and brilliant, and like no one's going to ask that question. But I asked Yashua, today I'm going to bring Rebecca. Can you please tell me what questions I should ask? So then Yashua said that ask the questions that's there in your heart. And 10 questions, I was not even counting, right? 10 beautiful questions popped up in my meditation, and I'm like I'm verbally recording it when I'm doing it, and those 10 questions came up, and at the end of it I said that Yashua said ki people are simple people. You don't have to overcomplicate your questions. Ask questions from your heart, and that's good enough. So that's how
Beautiful.
I'm sitting with you, feeling a lot more relaxed. I'm not looking at any of my questions I prepared. I'm just having a conversation with you.
Great. Because all
And I love
creation
your energy.
happens in the now moment. Creation
Yeah.
only happens spontaneously. Everything else that's strategized is not creation. But you know what's really
Yeah.
powerful about what you just shared, and thank you,
Yeah.
in your questions today have been very brilliant, is that there's such a great desire that we all have to be understood. And I feel that when we first start to awaken and we first start to discover the nature of life, and we're discovering consciousness, and there's all of this, there's such a desire to firstly share that with everyone, because that's our natural instinct as humans. This is so wonderful, I want to share it. And I want to
Yeah.
share it, but other people need to understand it or
Yeah.
understand me so that I can share it. So what we're actually looking for is that joy of sharing the experience, but that's driven also by a desire to be understood. And I feel that when we actually let go of, it doesn't really matter if they understand me or not, that's the liberation. And that's where everything really begins to open up. And I know that you've had to do that for yourself, and I know that I've had to do that for myself, where, no one really probably understands what I do or how that happens for me. And I'm partnered with somebody who works in like the scientific medical field, right? So,
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
there's versions of what I do for a living.
Wow,
But
really?
you have to let go of wanting to be understood, and it's okay if people don't understand you.
That's amazing that you shared that. I mean, I read in your website as well where you were saying you were a very academic person, and now you're going by the heart.
Yes,
No more
yes,
that is beautiful.
thank you. And what I do enjoy too is that there are people in every field that are living by the heart, and that's been a beautiful experience, is discovering in every field imaginable that there are people who are yearning for more insight and wisdom, just like you and I. And that's what, I wouldn't say that's what drives us, but it's certainly what gets me out of bed in the morning.
How does it make you feel when you go on all of these podcasts and you share your experiences and then you channel? How does it make you feel when you do it?
Well, I love channeling. It was quite a leap in the beginning, because people probably don't realize this, but it's actually a next level state of vulnerability to channel, because you really are just completely opening yourself up, and all your self-consciousness and editing and things that you would do to protect yourself in life with how you say things and what you will talk about,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have to let go of. So it's a very vulnerable experience. The other side of that, the reward, if you will, for that vulnerability, is that it's a very beautiful and comforting experience. So while people are often comforted by the channelings that we give, it's also very comforting to me. And I always feel very rejuvenated afterwards.
Hmm,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Do you think we would be able to have a channeling session today?
Of course. Yes. I don't know if you noticed, but they were sneaking in a little bit through some of those
I did
answers as
notice.
well.
I did. They said we here and there. I noticed it.
Yes.
I did notice
Of
it.
course. Would you like to begin with a question or a topic, Tanya, or would you like us to just dive in today?
I love it when they dive in, and every time the entities dive in, it's a very good opening statement, and then it's like it brings up my energy to the next level. When they speak first,
Right.
my energy changes. So I would
Okay.
love that.
Okay, great. And you can ask any questions as we go as well.
Yes, I also wanted to ask you, like, when you channel, what happens to your body? Like, I know that like for Summer Bacon, when she channels, her body can only do it for a certain amount of time, and then after that, it's dangerous for her body. Is
Oh,
there something like that for you?
no. We can go for hours, which is what we do when we do workshops and retreats. No, it's very
Oh,
natural for me.
interesting.
So,
That's good.
yeah, in the beginning, I found it challenging with my brain because my mind wanted to try and understand and remember everything. But I'm much more relaxed now. So the challenge was more the mental rather than the physical. Physical is very rejuvenating. I could have a migraine and channel and still feel good.
Still feel good. And
Yeah,
where does Rebecca go? Is Rebecca still there?
I'm just observing. So it's
Okay.
like watching a
And
scene.
so do you remember whatever you say once after
If it's of interest and important for me personally, in my experience, I will. But because I do so much of this, I have a way now of remembering things that I need to remember and not remembering the rest. So
That's good.
selective. Otherwise,
Yeah.
and it took me some time to learn how to do that.
Takes too much memory space,
Too
so
much
it's good to just
information.
clear it out.
Do I really
That's
need to
good.
know all of that about this person? No, not really. So it's
Yeah.
interesting actually because oftentimes I'll do a seminar or something and my partner will say to me, "Oh, how was that? That was do you remember that bit about that they said about this?" And I'm like, "Can you remind me what that was?" Yeah.
Oh God.
But anyhow, so should we dive in?
Yeah, let's dive
Great.
in.
Blessed One, greetings to you. We are with you. And it is our delight that you are sharing the exquisite nature of your vision. Indeed, it is your vision, not your words, that is worthy of attention. And therefore, even though you did not expect such a personal expression on this day, let us encourage you in this moment to begin to act upon your vision of possibility. And also to begin to communicate your vision, because there's so much that you experience that you do not speak of. Perhaps you are concerned that the grandiosity of what you see that is possible is far beyond what others would appreciate to be realistic. And yet we would always encourage you to believe your own vision. For if you do not create belief for it, how will others discover it? Yes?
Yes.
It's very important, the
I love
power of
it.
belief within your reality. Very important. But you are here with us on this day, and there are many who are here with us. And it is our joy to bring into the conversation the importance of belief, just as we have suggested, in creating vision. There is so much that people believe that they need in order to have a manifested reality. And they will often say, well, if I have a belief in the beginning, that will create my reality. But let us say this, humans are so saturated with belief that they often will continue to create the same things over and over and over and over again. And such is the karmic system that you have come to understand within your earth reality. And this is why we always suggest with not knowing what you believe. I don't know what to believe. And in that way, the vision arises. Then if you have a new direction with belief, which is completely believing yourself, completely believing your own vision, completely believing whatever possibility arises within you, you are now resetting your beliefs. And you are resetting a belief that will then create a reality that is conducive to that vision. Humans do not yet fully understand that your reality is plasmic in nature, and therefore it is very malleable. It is wise for humans to see reality as the environment that naturally adjusts to your vision to enable the best possible flourishing and experience for it. Reality is designed to bring vision to life. Yes, it is the petri dish upon which something is placed so that it may flourish. And if you know this to be true, then you realize that your reality will always shape itself to the optimum conditions for whatever your vision is. Your belief in your vision is what enables that seeding to take place. Your belief in the vision places that seed into the reality that then enables it to flourish in the most optimized way. Now, there are many humans at this time will say, well, I don't really know what to believe anymore. I don't even know if I can believe myself. But what they're saying is they don't believe their personalities. They don't believe what they used to believe. But when something new arises within you, some new desire, I have this sense for possibility. I would love to be able to do this. Believe that. Because humans have learned not to believe themselves and their own innate desire for experience, but they've learned to believe externalized sources of wisdom and information. And the revolution for humanity at this time is to turn within and begin to believe oneself. This is sovereignty. This is exercising your right to create your reality from the vision. But one must first believe oneself. Yes?
Yes.
Because anyone who's listening to this conversation at this time, there is not a desire within you to create anything that is not for the evolution of your consciousness. If you are aware and listening to this conversation, you are already beyond wanting to create more ego experience. You are already in a state where I want something new. And you can trust that, because if you're wanting to create something new, you are now in your creative capacity as a conscious being, and therefore believe that. Believe that which arises from you when you want something new. That's where the life is. Yes?
Yes.
Do you have a question?
I love that you spoke about belief and vision, and to talk about the same thing. When sometimes I feel like when I keep wanting these big dreams and these creating these visions, I'm not truly surrendering to what needs to happen. So there's always this sort of a confusion as to, am I supposed to be creating or am I supposed to surrender? In order to create, shouldn't I create, like I have to chase it or I have to like hustle? But when you surrender, you're not having a vision, you're just surrendering, and probably someone else has a vision. Am I right? Or
Well,
is
let's be
there a better?
clear. There is a vision that arises within you, yes. It's easy for the
Yes.
mind to dismiss it or say, that's not possible, we don't believe it. But if you create a
Mm-hmm.
belief for it, I believe myself, there is this desire from within for something to be created in my reality. Then there was a relaxation that occurs, because now I believe that vision. I know that reality will shape itself accordingly in order for that vision to become most manifest. However, there is a sense of action that can also arise. It's not a strategic action. It's not a what must I do to bring this into reality. This is the realm of inspired action. And inspired action is never a strategy, and it is never something that is actualized with a sense of purpose. And this can be difficult for humans to understand, because they are used to taking action when there is a perceivable outcome. Inspired action is when the flame of consciousness from within you ignites and you say, I want to do this in this moment. I have a great desire to telephone this person in this moment. I have a great desire to book this particular trip in this moment. Yes, that's inspired action. And then you act in that moment, and then there's relaxation. Because humans have learned that creation requires consistency, strategy, and repetition. Now, anything that is inspired cannot be maintained. Creation itself has nothing to do with maintenance. And so inspired action is something that arises in this moment. I'm inspired to take action here. And then it's gone. It's like a pulse. It's like a flame from the universe. And so if you realize this, you stop demanding of yourself consistency with action. And in this way, everything begins to time and align itself perfectly. For example, if you are organizing an event and you keep feeling, I must book the caterer, for example, I must do it, but I'm not finding the time, or I'm not finding the right, it's not coming together, relax. Because the more you relax, then there will be an inspired moment. Oh, here is the inspiration. There it is. And it's far more efficient because it means you don't spend as much of your focus and energy trying to put things together. You're now aligning with the perfect variables for that manifestation to come into actuality in the moment. It's far more efficient for your energy system and far more efficient for the creation itself. We see humans very much getting in the way of their creations by trying to be consistent with their action. Now, humans will say, well, I need to be disciplined if I want to manifest. Be disciplined in being present. Because when you are present, is there any inspiration to act in this moment? There is not. But notice how the mind will demand, so you haven't taken action, you must take it. There's no energy for it. If there's no energy for it, you're just creating phantoms in the room that have very little effect on the creation itself. It's keeping yourself busy for the sake of it without actually contributing to the creation of your vision. Yes? So in our view, the efficient human creation for humanity is be still and act when inspired. Be still and act when inspired, because that is the movement of propulsion. That is the pulse of the cosmos, and it is the energy through which all momentum and change is realized in your galaxy and beyond. That's the only consistency, the pulse of life. Still and action. Still and action. So be patient, dear one. You don't have to force time.
I love that.
Do you have a question?
Now, from your perspective now, who is God?
Well, it's not a question of who. Yes? It's a question of who is not.
Oh.
It's not a question of what. It's a question of what is not. Because it is as it is, as it is, as it is, as it is. And you experience many faces of what you call God, the essence of life, the heartbeat of the universe, in all manner of things. Yes?
My question is, how are expectations and preconceived notions about people affecting everybody's relationships? How can we fix this? And what is the biggest reason why relationships are failing on the planet right now?
Well, this is a question about belief, agree? Because humans have learned to act and respond to your current present reality based on memory systems. So you might have an experience of a memory of a particular human, or an experience of a memory of a particular relationship, and that now formulates the belief that you view through your current lens of reality a relationship or another human, agree? And so when you ask the question, I wonder what this is, I wonder what can happen in this moment, I wonder what alchemy can occur in this connection or this relationship, you're now opening the door to the greatest possible experience that can occur for your evolution. When you have an expectation for behavior or an expectation for a personality, you are immediately limiting the capacity of that experience to align with your memory of how things will likely occur. So again, asking the question, what is possible here? I wonder what this human is all about. I wonder what is possible in this relationship, opens the potential for more. Because what humans are always wanting is more. And that, in our view, has nothing to do with greed. It has to do of your capacity as interdimensional and multidimensional source beings to experience more. And it's your right to experience more, not more of the same. Do we answer your question?
Yes, you did. My next question is, we have one of the biggest pandemic that we have is on loneliness, which is causing depression on people. Why is this happening and how can we deal with this?
Well, this is a part of the collective identity crisis that we see occurring at this time, whereby humans are afraid of not belonging. Yes, and how do they belong? They belong through identity. So when there is a shift in evolution in human consciousness collectively, and humans start surpassing the containment of their identity, the first fear they begin to experience is, I now no longer know how to connect. Humans can't connect with me. I can't connect with others because that marker point of identity, I've now moved beyond it. And now I am invisible. But in actuality, the opposite is true. Now you're becoming highly invisible because now you're not contained or referenced by that particular marker. It's like being a book on the bookshelf of life. This is where I belong. This is where you can find me. Suddenly, how is anyone going to find me? And what you don't realize is in that state where you're willing to move beyond identity, you're now so highly visible because now you're vibrationally visible, which means that those who are in alignment with you and resonant with you can now begin to navigate towards you and resonate. And we're going to see this in your earth reality with a remapping of humanity. Humans are going to be moving to different groups and different locations based on resonance. So your visibility now is not through the matrix of identity, it's through resonance, which means that you're able to access and be accessed by people who are your people. Yes, but it does require a shifting in belief whereby I now no longer depend upon my marker place in society to be visible. I want to be visible beyond identity. And that creates a period of time, what we would call an interface of time, where you are moving between being identified in that matrix of society and being highly visible in a resonant field. And that space of transition is where humans feel very isolated because they feel as if they are the only one in the room. And that's a wonderful time to say, well, there's no one else here at the moment. They haven't moved into my realm at this time. This is an ideal time to go deeper within myself and become more of myself in this space. Because if there's no one there telling you who you are or who they remember you as, you have the space and opportunity to become more of yourself in that space. And that's the transition.
That makes total sense to me. Money matters seems to put a lot of the people under stress. What is the spiritual significance of money and what are we supposed to learn from money energy?
It's so interesting because humans say, what is the spiritual significance of money? The spiritual significance of money, in our view, is only an opportunity to realize that it prevents you from manifesting in the way that you wish, because it prevents you from manifesting with freedom. It's so interesting to us to see how humans put so much energy into generating currency that will give you permission to create the things that you want to create, rather than just creating the things that you want to create. It's very interesting to us. And it's an example of how much humans have outsourced their creative capacity. Because if I have this, then I can do that. And yet all the while, how many humans have you witnessed and experienced in your reality that become so focused on gaining the permission to create that they actually forget to create and forget that they wanted to create? They become so focused upon the means to the end that the creation doesn't happen. So in our view, it's a wonderful opportunity to see what distraction is. Distract. Go this way. Don't go this way. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, once you realize the magic of creation, you realize that the means to the end now becomes the residual energy that becomes generated within the matrix of belief for the creations that you just create. Money is the effect, not the cause. Yes, because all things in your reality are the effect of your creation. But humans have it the other way around. You exist in an inverted view of reality, yes, where money is the cause and freedom is the effect. But in actuality, your freedom to create is the cause and money is the effect. Humans, yes? You have an interesting experience of living in an inverted reality. Yes? When you don't even believe that you are the gods of your own creations.
That's the game.
Yes?
In this, currently, there seems to be more and more people who do not want kids. And then there is also the other couples who want children but who are unable to conceive children. Why is this happening here, and what is the lesson here for us? And how do the parents who are unable to conceive deal with their pain?
Interesting question. This is also a question of what is it that we are inspired to create? So many humans, in our view, have moved into the experience where we cannot create the lives that we want, but the next generation can. And so there has been an instinctual, almost physical drive in our view, particularly within the last few 100,000 years on your planet, to put your hopes and dreams into the next generation. Yes, so there is an instinct, a drive. We cannot create our realities, but the next generation, they will do it. And in that generation, we cannot create what we wish to create, but the next generation, they will do it. And that's why you often see, in our view, we've witnessed this many times, those who have actually generated and created an empire for themselves, and then they don't want to pass it on to the next generation because they've bypassed that instinct. So what we would say to humans who are in the situation where there is a desire to create family, but it's not occurring for them at this time, it's again about inspired action. Because the conception of a child itself is inspired. It's not something that can be easily manipulated through material means. And so it is something that is caused for the breath of life. Yes? And there is a breath of life that chooses to manifest itself within your reality, or it doesn't. And so in this way, the parent, particularly the mother, is the doorway of possibility through which source consciousness will continue to create in your reality. And for some, it will be created through fractalizations of yourself, which is another human. And for others, it will be through a fractalization of yourself through other creations, such as home or family or a business enterprise. Yes? So the words that we would offer to comfort for those who are not creating in the way that they would wish to create is, how is it that you can create? Because whether you're creating another human, or you're creating a business, or you're creating a meal for your family, what's important is the freedom within which you are creating it. And what we see with many humans is they feel as if they don't have the freedom in creating their own child. This is not working for me. I'm not free in my creation. And so what we would suggest is to find creations you do feel free in and get that energy generating within you. I have the freedom to create. I have the freedom to create. And in that way, you are opening yourself as an interface for creation to emerge within your reality. And perhaps that can be as a child. Yes?
That's interesting. Yes. How can more people connect with their higher self or the masters? And how can we sometimes get confused if it's us connecting to the higher self or if it's just our mind playing tricks. So how do we
Well,
do
the
that?
first thing is to believe yourself. Yes?
Yes.
Believe yourself. Because it's only the mind that will attempt to qualify it as true or false. Your consciousness doesn't qualify anything as true or false. Everything is as it is as it is. Your consciousness will only say, is this feeling resonant for me or not? So if something is occurring within you and it's arising within you and it feels resonant to you, it cannot be anything that you are not. And therefore, it's not to be qualified by the mind because the mind has no understanding of resonance. It only has an understanding of current beliefs within your reality. Therefore, firstly, one must believe oneself. Yes? And does it feel resonant to you, what is arising from within you? If it does, then you trust it because it is an aspect of your consciousness. And whether it is what you believe to be a master or your own higher self, it is all an aspect of your consciousness because you are all part of the one. The question is only, is this resonant to me? And if it is resonant to you, then it is available and valid in your current experience. Yes?
Yes.
Believe yourself.
Should we be pursuing these spiritual gifts like clairs or wanting to channel, astral travel? Should we be trying to pursue these things?
Well, in our view, nothing in your earth reality should be pursued. We would instead encourage you to create, because nothing out there is of value to you at this time. This is why you are here at this time, because you are generating new experience for reality. You are generating the new blueprints of experience. You are generating a new earth reality. Therefore, if you are generating your experience, it cannot be pursued. So we'll bring you back to our earlier conversation around inspired action. If you are inspired to engage with something and develop a certain skill or develop a certain experience for yourself and the evolution of your own consciousness, and it feels resonant to do so, then do so. For example, with this one, they were very inspired in the beginning, and then there were a period of years where they were not inspired. And they said to us, I am not inspired to engage in this way. And then arose another period in their life where they were inspired again. And they have continued to be inspired ever since. Trust it.
Interesting.
Yes?
Yes. What is the link that connects the human channeler with the entity that they channel?
Well, we would not say that it is a link. We would say it is a shared experience. There is a shared experience. Because what we are saying to you about identity is that identity are false markers. You can begin to say, well, what is an accurate marker for where I fit within the tree of life? And that's experience. So if you have a shared experience, you are now in a similar field of resonance. And if you are in a similar field of resonance, then those are the branches that are closest to where you are and the easiest for you to access. And if something's easy and it's simple, then it's highly resonant. You have this experience in your own life, agree? When something is resonant, it's easy. And when something is easy, it's resonant. Yes? And
Yes.
the joy that you, dear one, find most potent to you in your experience is the joy of sharing your experiences with people. You have conversations like this so that you can share in other people's experiences also. Agree? That's shared experience. That's the marker for identity. That's where you experience resonance. So now you begin to identify in terms of your shared experiences. Agree? Yes.
Agreed.
And this is how you find your relation. Oh, we have similar. Yes. Oh, yes. Resonant. You are my person. Yes. Or you are part of my human family. Yes. Because we have shared experiences. So that's the reference point.
That's true. That's
Yes.
true.
So,
I mean, yeah, that's true.
so when you move into what you call a channeled state, we would say that you are moving into deep resonance with other aspects of source consciousness that you have shared experience with. That's the simplest way we can describe it on this day.
On the planet, what are we all trying to move towards? What are we all trying to achieve at the end of the day?
Expansion. Yes, because life expands
Yeah.
continually. And it is the containment and the artificial containment of not only the time loop of your reality, but also the sense of your own limitation and your experience and belief with the karmic system that prevents humanity from continually experiencing expansion to such an extent that you are so happy and delighted with seeing technology external to yourselves expand before your own expansion. Yes. Let us put all of our energies into expanding this instead of expanding this. Isn't that curious? Another example of the delightful inverted belief system within your reality. Interesting, agree?
Very
Everything
interesting
else can
when you look
expand.
at it.
Look at us, we're evolving, we have these technologies. The human body, in our view, is the ultimate technology in your reality, as yet still highly underestimated. Human
If
technology.
if we were to use the human technology, what are the possibilities?
Well, of course, this is the ultimate question, agree? Because when you really understand the technology of your own genetic blueprints and your own physical capacity, you begin to realize that you are not contained within your body at all, but rather your body is a doorway. It's a doorway to other realities. It's a doorway to experiences. It's a doorway to multiple experiences of consciousness. It is the opening. And yet there are so many philosophies and belief structures that would suggest that the body is a hindrance, that it is in fact the sin, yes, the sin of the flesh, rather than it is the holiest of holies. It is a temple for source consciousness, and it is the doorway to the all. It is the most sacred and holy of holies.
I love that. It sounds like our body itself is like a cell phone, because using the cell phone, I can access everything that I want. And in fact, better than the cell phone is my body. Through my body, which is like a communication device, probably I could access the whole thing that's outside. But if I didn't have the body, I would have been able to anyway access everything. Why did I have to come into the body?
So that you could be so highly focused and concentrated within this reality, yes? This is an earth reality where humans believe that they're creating externally and it all happens outside here, rather than source consciousness is coming through you and creating into this reality. So it's the most highly potent experience of believing that you are creating as an individual. Yes? So if you could imagine for a moment a master with a paintbrush painting on a canvas. In other life experiences, you feel yourself as the master painting the canvas. In this life experience, you see yourself as the brush. It's very up close. You feel responsible for everything that happens. And it's a very intense experience of creation. Up close and intensified. Yes? And of course, the more expanded you become in your awareness, you begin to relax back into the master and enjoy the view of what's being created.
I love that. What do you think is, from your perspective, what are the big shifts that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, and how can we be preparing for that?
That's an interesting question because it entertains a reality that something is going to happen regardless of what you do. how we would respond is in this way. Evolution is going to happen regardless of what you do. So if that is true, as we are ascertaining that it is, it would be wise for you to experience as much as you possibly can. Because what humans will often do in the face of change is that they will attempt to maintain and contain what they already have. Change is happening, I must solidify my identity to survive. Change is happening, I must conserve what I have already created. I must maintain what I've already been able to establish. Yes? But rather we would suggest the opposite, that it would be far wiser to say, well, I wonder what it is that I can create in this moment. I wonder what is going to happen. I'm going to allow myself to experience as much as I possibly can instead of trying to maintain what it is that I've already done. And in that way, you're giving yourself the optimum opportunity to evolve in an accelerated way, yes, so that you can have the experience within this life blueprint for becoming incredibly conscious within a perceivably contained reality, which is why you would have chosen to come here and experience this in the beginning. To experience evolution in an accelerated way. There's not too many places in the universe where you can have the experience of evolving beyond the appearance of your reality. And humans will often look to reality to tell you that you are evolving. This is the experience where you evolve beyond what your reality tells you. That's masterful. Agree?
Agreed. I sometimes feel like that this whole ascension, new earth thing is what's happening right now. And then I kind of get a little anxious thinking that, oh, what if I don't ascend during my current lifetime? Am I going to come back again, reincarnate into old earth? What does the whole thing mean? Like, what happens if we, because from all the channelers, they predict that there's going to be some solar flash that's going to happen, then there's going to be these natural disasters, and within the next 10 years everyone would have already ascended to the new earth, etc. What if people don't evolve at the pace that we are evolving? What happens to them? Or are we even looking at it wrong? Are we even supposed to look at predictions?
Well, let us say this. The evolution of humanity within your earth reality is a collective evolution. Now, evolution in our view is not, which means nobody is left behind. But evolution in our view is viewed in a somewhat inaccurate way by humans, because humans will see evolution as moving from one end of the spectrum of vibration to the other end. So you move from negative experiences, for example, in your polarized sense of reality, or a certain spectrum of vibration and experiences into a higher vibration or expansion of reality. And in essence, the evolution of human consciousness is increasing your capacity to experience the entire spectrum. So rather than moving from one end to the other, you actually widen the bandwidth of vibration to enable you to encompass and incorporate all aspects of human experience and move forward together collectively. And this is why so many humans at this time become confused, because they say, well, you're meant to be evolving, but why is there so much of this other experience in our reality that we would not wish to have at this time? Why is there so much amplification of darkness and tragedy and war and so on if we're meant to be evolving? And so it would seem that the polarities are becoming more intensified, that as the light increases, the darkness increases. This is what many humans would describe it as. But evolution of consciousness is not moving from the dark to the light. It's increasing the intensity of the entire experience, because when you increase the intensity, you can deny nothing and you include everything. You begin to see source consciousness in everything, and then you move forward in that totality. So in our view, no one gets left behind, but, and here's the but, while there is a collective human consciousness, every human creates their own experience of reality. There are billions of individual spheres of reality in your earth experience. And so therefore, when you evolve and you have the ability to have intensified experiences, you begin to become more autonomous in what it is you wish to experience. Now you're not subject to reality. Now I'm going to focus here, and this is what I wish to create for my experience. Yes, this is earlier in our conversation. So those who are becoming more aware of their capacity are now very diligent and specific. This is what I want to create. And therefore, there will be a large proportion of that collective human consciousness that wishes to create that. And that collectively becomes a resonant new earth experience. There will also be humans that deliberately want to create something on the other end of the spectrum. And that becomes their experience of what you would call the old earth reality. But evolution still happens collectively. What happens is there's more sovereignty in what it is you're choosing to create. Yes?
Yes, that makes sense. Do you have any final advice for us?
Enjoy. Where is the joy? It's not a serious business. Humans have turned life into a serious business, when actually it's a continual delight of what is possible in this moment. What is the vision arising in this moment? Where is the inspired action in this moment? Enjoy. Be in joy. Because there is nothing that you can do about what has already happened. And there's nothing that you can do about what will happen. But what you can do, and where all your power is what is arising in this moment. I wonder what is possible in this moment. And then life becomes a wonderful, magical, varied experience. Experience as much as you can. Be bold in your choices. Believe yourself. Yes, that is what we say to you, because ye are all gods. Yes?
Yes.
Very well, dear one. It is our joy to be with you in this way. Peace be with you.
Peace be with you. Thank you so much. I love that.
Thank you.
You know, when they usually channel, because they don't pause, right? When the entity doesn't pause. So I'm like so ready with the next question. Even when they are giving the answers, I'm waiting, looking at the next question, because I know that they will just end it abruptly. But the masters were pausing, and it's like I was having a conversation with them, and they were calm, and there was no rush, which is why I exceeded the time. But they were just so calm. They were amazing.
And we hear your questions, actually. We hear them even before you verbalize them, which is interesting.
Oh, you hear the question?
Yeah.
There were questions that I was having in my mind. I'm like, should I ask? Should I not? Oh, you heard all of that. Oh, sheesh.
No, that's okay. The ones that you were inspired to ask, you asked. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. Rebecca, I had such an awesome time speaking with you. Can you tell us more about where we can find you and the work that you do?
Of course. Thank you. And thank you for hosting today. It was a really wonderful conversation. I enjoyed it. Thank you. So you can find everything about what we do on our website, which is just my name, RebeccaDawson.com. And we do a lot of workshops and seminars and sessions. And actually, what I would encourage people to do is, if they resonate with the material, there's a lot of free channelings on there as well. You can find a lot of content there. If it resonates with you, and I would encourage you to join our community, which for a very, very small monthly fee enables you to have live sessions with the masters and group discussions and access to all sorts of free seminars as well. So there's a wealth of content there if that resonates with you.
I would highly recommend you do it, because to anyone watching the show, I will be putting all of the links in the show notes. And this session has been truly amazing for me. And if you get the opportunity to ask your own questions and just take in that energy, please do so. I am in. I have a new segment called the Cosmic Close, where I just ask two questions. And so, my first question to you is: with all of that experience that you've had, right? How may we be free of suffering and find lasting peace and happiness?
Wow, that's a great question. Giving up the idea that we have to know. I think it's wonderful just to say, I don't know. I say, I don't know a lot. I think we put a lot of suffering, I think, is from the experience of having to have the answers. And sometimes we just don't. A lot of the time we just don't, and that's okay. That's what I would say.
I love that. And my last question is: what is the nature of our reality?
Ooh, the nature of our reality is a canvas upon which we paint with the seed of our consciousness.
Oh, wow. I love that. These questions are inspired by Rupert Spera's questions, where he does thesis and books and all that. And when I ask these questions, I myself don't know what would come through, and every time the answers that come through are like, "Wow, I love that. I love what you said." Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on the podcast and
Thank you.
speaking to us.
It was lovely
I
to be
absolutely
here.
enjoyed. We like. I'm sure that all of us had such a great time. I'm sure that the conversations are life changing, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Thank you too. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you for creating the conversation. Wishing you a beautiful day.